Hey guys, welcome back to the Spectra Creative Channel. I'm your host, Scott Toy Guru Neitlich, and a little bit more of a serious video this time, although I'm sure I'll have some wisecracking jokes in it. I've mentioned a lot of times that a big reason I started this channel was to try to dispute, or rather remove the difference between facts and myths, misconceptions, shall we say, in the toy industry, because once some bad information is out there, it tends to get, well, it hits the masses and gets talked about and becomes even bigger. Now, recently, John Morey dropped me a email. He actually wasn't the only one, but he was the first. You may know John Morey as the author of the hit Lucy December books, which you can find on Amazon. But what John asked me was what I thought about this new article on CNBC about the toy industry being adult collector driven. All right, now, I'm not someone to jump and just start screaming fake news every time there's an opinion I don't agree with, but honestly, the press has a history of being wrong, and in recent times, the press has been used not as the fourth estate, but to push agendas, shall we say. And you're like, well, what's the agenda with saying adults are buying toys for themselves and that it's less kids? How could there be an agenda there? Well, come with me and let's go on a journey, because it would be awesome if adult collectors legitimately were the future of the toy industry, because we would get more stuff. And I would love to be wrong about how often I've said what a small drop in the bucket adult collectors are, because, again, it would just mean more cool product for all of us. And like you, I'm also an adult collector, besides having worked in the industry, which is where I get my information about how small the adult collector market is. All right, so let's go back to the article, because I want to go through this and actually point out how it's using lack of actual information to manipulate you into their points. So, all right, they first make the point that adults love cartoons. Well, okay, yeah, of course. I will give them that point 100%. I'm not going to dispute that. Of course, adults love cartoons. From, Flintstones to Rick and Morty, we love cartoons. In recent years, toy makers such as Mattel have created lines just for collectors. Well, this is true. Matty Collector, which I was a big part of, was literally for collectors because it was only sold online and only for 18 plus. Now, and it also had monthly offerings. It was continuous. It was nonstop product, but it did represent a very, very small audience. And you might say, well, wait a minute, how could that possibly have been a small audience? I mean, if they're saying, Mattel still has Mattel Creations, right? So the article is correct in that. It's not quite the same as Matty Collector. You're not getting, constant monthly items. Every once in a while, there's a big item to buy, which is great, which is cool. But I wouldn't put this in the same category as a dedicated site. Even HasLab has more items than Mattel Creations, and it's, especially because it also has, exclusive regular figures that you can buy, like, troop builders and stuff. All right, let's not mince hairs, though. But it's basically saying that kids are at the heart of the growth. And they're, trying to coin the term kidults, which has also, been around for years. I even have a book called Kidults. Now, they're using NPD data, but if you notice, they say right in the middle that NPD data defines anyone 12 and over as an adult for this study. 12 and over, so a 13-year-old is considered an adult, a 15-year-old an adult, a 12-and-a-half-year-old an adult. See, I don't think that's how we as adult collectors would define an adult collector, saying a 12-year-old is an adult collector. Maybe they're an older kid, but an adult collector, to me, you're in your 20s at least to be qualified, because you have to be, an adult. And if adult collectors were so numerous, why is it the product design for us is always going on clearance at big box store? And we're going to get back to that, because that's the final say, is what big box stores take. And they tend to put collector product, stuff that's designed for 18 plus, for the adult collector, in the area behind electronics, not in the main aisle, because the main aisle has to have a certain amount of velocity, a certain amount of turns. All right, let's go back to the article. So, talking about definition of adulthood from Jeremy Padower, great guy over at Wicked Cool Toys, and he talks about the nostalgia with TV shows from the 70s and 80s. But now we get into, saying things like, Mattel having its Barbie and Hot Wheels that are designed specifically for this group of buyers. Now, that is the first misconception. So yes, 100%, Mattel has Barbie and it has Hot Wheels designed for adult collectors sold online. But these are designed not for the revenue that they're going to get from the adult collector, because it is a tiny drop in the bucket. In fact, Matty Collector outsold both Barbie and Hot Wheels Collector, and it still got swept under the rug when no one was around to run it. Reason being why Matty Collector was different from Hot Wheels Collector or Barbie Collector or the Redline Club is because both Redline Club and Barbie Collector are designed as advertising tools to push people to the retail aisle. That's the entire reason Barbie Collector exists and Redline Club exists. There's not enough revenue coming from either of those streams to justify the business, but it's looked at as an advertising expense. Matty Collector, with He-Man and Back to the Future, it didn't have a retail line to push. DC Universe was off the shelf even by the time it moved to Matty Collector. So there's no, there's a Barbie aisle, but there was no He-Man aisle. There was nothing to push people to retail, so there was no reason to keep it going. Hence why Barbie Collector and Hot Wheels Collector are still around. All right, now the next one, again, they are very much mincing examples, talking about the Stranger Things Light Bright set from Basic Fun. Now, I'm a huge fan of Basic Fun. I've actually done some work with them and spent quite a few hours on the phone with them. They're down in Florida. They do a lot of licensing of older toys, bringing them back for a new generation, hence Light Bright, one of their bigger hits right now. And Light Bright, it's awesome to see it on shelf, and they have they even have a little end cap thing at Target. It's not actually on the end cap, it's like the inner end cap selling the refills, which I think is great. Now, this article is talking about this specific Light Bright set, the Stranger Things licensed, themed version, with pictures of the actors on the front or paintings of them with their 1980s Light Bright, making, pictures inspired by the show. Even though Light Bright, well, actually, no, it was on the show. It was on last season. Spoiler alert. All right, that's not the point. The point is this is absolutely a bell curve, like way far out there, cherry-picked example. To say that Basic Fun is in the business of the adult collector, like the way NECA is or Super 7 is absolutely cherry-picking, because Basic Fun has this. They have their Light Bright Stranger Things set. That's about it for the adult collector. Everything else they have, especially in the Light Bright category, is for kids. But even in all of their categories, I give you People's Exhibit A, the About page for Basic Fun. There's not a single image of the adult collector on this page. Yes, there's brands like Care Bears that would appeal to the adult collector, but clearly advertised to kids, hence the children models that are used on all those shots. All right, so continuing looking at NPD as the source, saying that, this kid-adult group represents 60% of the dollar growth. Okay, boy, now we're really getting into misleading data. And that's my core issue with this article, is data can be used to show a correlation between pretty much anything. And 90% of people know that graphs show anything you want them to show. So the way the article is actually presenting this information is incredibly misleading, because they're talking about a growth, how much growth a category had. It went from, the easiest way to explain it is, let's say you have 4 apples, right? And the following year you sell 8 apples. Sorry, first year you sold 4, now you sold 8. Okay, well, selling 8 apples is a 200% growth on top of your 4 that you sold last year. So saying that the kid-adult business led to a 60% growth, or is the reason for the growth in the toy business, as Isaac Laren from MGA is saying, well, you have to see what is the total growth. And again, I give you People's Exhibit B, the About page for MGA. Also, no adult collector product. Kids are playing with toys. They're playing with different toys than we played with, but their toys, whether they're digital or physical, aren't in the action figure or, push around car or doll type. Now, there are some really expensive big things for adult collectors, and this is exactly actually why I'm going to get into the original point I said about why I felt this article was misleading, because it feels very much like it's set out to make a point. To make the point that adult collectors were the growth of the toy industry, and then it was going to back in and try to find the evidence. The problem is the evidence doesn't exist, because retail is super smart, and they would be shipping adult collector product, and they would be skewing it not just behind the electronics aisle from that previous slide, but they would be skewing it in the main retail aisle. If adult collector products sold this well, if it really was this much growth, you would see it way more at retail. Retail does not want to miss out. What I believe this article is doing is trying to make the point that if adult collectors are the biggest growth, then that's okay that toys are getting so expensive. I believe that in order to set up for the toy industry's inevitable questions from retail, wait a minute, why are basic figures now retailing for $30? Well, they can come back and say, well, there's this great article in CNBC talking about how the adult collector is 100% of the growth so that's they can afford it, and Target and Walmart go, oh, okay, that makes sense. But the problem is none of this is true, and if what I'm saying and I believe is kind of true, then it's just a self-defeating prophecy built on a house of cards. It's like leading two donkeys to two other donkeys. You can say that adult collectors are the future all you want and try to use that to justify price points, but at the end of the day, if you look at what's at retail, what actually sells, and what toy companies are making and promoting, saying that the adult collector is the largest potential consumer for the toy industry is a big misconception. Big misconception. All right. I hope this article shed some light on how news articles do tend to, shall we say, frame data to tell the story they want. I don't know. Let me know what you got out of this article. Maybe it's different than what I did, and love to discuss it in the comments below. Thanks again for writing, for sharing, and thanks to John for passing this article. And I'll see you guys in the next one.